Right, so welcome back. So basically this is going to be a review of my F700GS. Reason being is I am selling it and getting a bigger bike, which will be unveiled in a few weeks or a week's time or something. So if you want to see what that is, then please do come back and take a look. But I thought after a year or so I may as well give this bike a review and give my thoughts about how the bike has been, and go through a few of the sort of typical categories and let you know maybe if it's a bike that you would like to buy or looking to buy, then yeah, stick around. And I won't say stick around and stay tuned, that's I think that phrase has been taken, but yeah, stay with me and I'll tell you my thoughts on it. Okay, so here it is, the 700GS. It has an 800cc parallel twin, even though it's called an F700. It has the pretty average noise, just sort of purrs away very quietly. It's got the twin discs Brembos, they brake really nicely. They got a good bike to them, I think. This one came with all the roll bars and the undercarriage protection. It has a very boring and simple GS sort of clocks at the front and dials, and then around the front it's got the classic asymmetric lights, sort of like the 1200GS. So yeah, pretty simple looks. Okay, so comfort. It's a good time to look at comfort because you can see me on the screen, but it's a very comfortable bike. You sit very upright, you got your arms sort of just about straight but nice and loosely hanging on the bars. They got nice wide handlebars, so it's very easy to maneuver. It's got a nice low center of gravity. That's probably not comfort, but yeah, we've probably gone waylaid there. But the seat I've got is a Sergeant touring seat that came with the bike, and I would highly recommend that if you were thinking of getting something, because it is a lovely, comfortable seat. And the one that comes standard doesn't actually look that comfortable, but I've never used it, so I can't really talk. But that's what other people have said. So the other thing I should say is, for a pillion, it's also incredibly comfortable. My wife and I have gone on trips all over the UK. We've been up to Scotland, Outer Hebrides. We've done thousands and thousands of miles this year, and we've had no complaints in terms of comfort. It's been fantastic. So comfort, yeah, 8 out of 10 I would say, really comfortable. I think on the long journeys, right near the end, we're starting to get numb butts, and I don't know if that's just because that's what you get from sitting down for so long, or if that's because this just isn't a 10 out of 10 for comfort, but it is very comfortable. Right, so handling. I think it handles really, really well. I've just got new tyres on it, and that's made the biggest difference, but it's really easy bike to handle. It's got a low center of gravity because the tank is back here. I don't know if you can see, but it's back here. So that brings the weight down, doesn't have the tank in the normal place. And I think, which is going to be my overarching point, but as a first big bike, I think it's such a nice bike because it just stays upright so easily, and it's a really easy bike to maneuver and flick around in the corners. It's just a very manageable first big bike. So yeah, I would say handling wise, it's really nice. I would give it an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Like, you can't really fault it. It's so easy to ride. Just as a side note, I would never I'd never suggest getting the pin lock. The pin lock that I've got is the one that goes a little bit, tinted in the sun. And oh my god, it is so shit. I would not recommend it. It just it doesn't work like a pin lock should. So if you're thinking of getting one, I wouldn't bother. Just use your drop down visor or get some sunglasses or something, but that's just a side note. So cost of the bike is not too bad. It was about I think I bought it for about just under £5,000, which I think is in line with other bikes this size. I think, yeah, that's probably where you're gonna. It's around the ballpark of what you're gonna pay for a good CB500X or SV650 or Versas. 650, those kind of bikes that are all similar range. So yeah, maybe those are a little bit cheaper, but I would say that's not too bad. So for the looks, like, I think it looks quite cool. Maybe a little boring, but it kind of looks just like a little brother of a GS, a 1200, so it's not a bad thing, I don't think. Right, so in terms of speed, I'll do a bit on the motorway in a bit. Hopefully we'll get a different view and I'll explain the motorway. But in terms of just speed, if you kind of, you know, if you drop a gear to second maybe and you open up, it's not bad, you know, it does go. And I think the important thing about this bike is if it's your first big bike, I think it's nice manageable speed, enough to have a lot of fun when you get a big bike. You know, you're like, oh, this is much quicker than a 125 obviously, but it's very manageable. It's a nice smooth acceleration. It doesn't rip your arms off, but it's still great fun initially, especially. So it's something that I think is just a great example of a good first big bike, because I just think it's such a nice manageable bike, a good sort of stepping stone onto something a bit bigger. Right, so I've done my shopping, got my potatoes. That's what I needed to get, potatoes. I am on the way back, so I thought one of the things we'll talk about, because I know a lot of people will be curious, is like how it does on the motorway or on a dual carriageway or whatever. So I will take a slightly longer route home and go on the A34 just to demonstrate what it's like on a motorway. I'll give you my thoughts, what's good, what's bad, etc, etc. Let me just burn this Merc. A nice one kind of in front of me, but look where you're going. So number one is, so it gets up to speed really fast. I mean, you got no issues. I'm at 70 and that was an uphill on ramp. No issues at all there. You won't have any problems dicing in and out, that's for sure. In terms of its speed, it's fine on the motorway. It holds 70 at 4,000 revs, so I'm at 70 now, just over 4,000, and it seems it doesn't struggle at all. It's quite good with this big screen, that it blocks a lot of it. But something I will say is that you do get quite a lot of buffet on the body. It is one of the reasons why I'm getting a bigger bike. I think honestly it's fine for most circumstances. You won't notice too much. And I mean, I rode motorcycles the entire motorcycles. I rode on the motorways all the way up to Scotland, which is a lot of motorways. There's also a lot of wind, a lot of trucks, and it managed absolutely fine. It was just, there is a bit of buffeting, so you do feel a lot on your body, and that does feel a little bit disconcerting when the winds pick up a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted a slightly bigger bike, or a bigger bike, is so that it just sits a bit more solid, because inevitably we're going to do some motorways when we do our long trip coming up. So I wanted something that I could just feel a bit more secure and solid on. But other than that, it is honestly fine. Like, as long as you keep your upper body relaxed, you know, let the bike do its thing, you know, you can easily accelerate in 6th gear, and just like that, I am going 90, okay? I won't say that. Just like that, I'm going very fast. So it's easy to get speed. You can sit at 80 probably. I definitely did when I was on the way out to Scotland on the empty motorways, but yeah, I think that's one of the things though, is that with these bikes, the nature of it is when you're sitting upright and you don't have a big fairing like you do on a bigger adventure bike like a 1200 or a 1290 KTM or something like that. The thing is, you sit up and then you hit by all this wind, so you do feel the wind, whereas I think on a smaller bike, if you sat in a more sporty position, you tuck down, you definitely won't feel nearly as much of the wind. So that's something to think about. But I think if you're getting on your first big bike, then I don't think you should go into big bikes. So I think this is your best bet. It's not your best bet. I think this is, like, you know, as good as we're going to get. So there was a lot of marbled stuff, but it's not bad at all. It's got plenty of speed. It's just I wanted a bit more protection from the strong winds, because we were caught in 50-mile-an-hour winds on the motorway, and that wasn't so much fun on this bike because it isn't that heavy relative to a big bike. Hopefully this truck gets going. Half mile, let's burn it. So if you chop it down and give it the beans, you are good to go. Yeehaw! Won't notice anything. So yeah, look, as you can see, I'm sitting 75, no issues whatsoever. It really is fine on the motorway. It's just if you're looking for something a bit more stable, then don't go there. This is just stupid driving. Come on, you should not be going that slowly. So yeah, I hope that wasn't too confusing. You get the gist. It's still filming. Hopefully this demonstrates that the bike is actually a lot of fun. Like, you're not going to be left wanting for power initially, and initially is the big word. So it brings me on to the last thing I want to talk about, and that is like what are the issues that I've had with this bike. And I would say initially there was very few issues, because it's got plenty of power when you're coming from a smaller bike. Like, you really have fun with that kind of power. You can sit on the motorway easier without it dying. It feels like a big bike, so you got a bit more big bike presence than you used to. Really easy to handle. Like, it does all those things really well. So the main issues for me have come from owning the bike longer. I've now got to the point where it does actually feel a bit sluggish, because I think you get used to power quite quickly, but this is not by any means a powerful bike. So I think you'll be left wanting a bit more power, but I think later on. So initially you'll probably be fine with it. So it's one of the reasons. It's just maybe a lack of power. Second reason was what I've just spoken about, was that just is quite a lot of buffeting on the motorway in the body, and you kind of get thrown around a fair bit when it's really windy. When it's calm, there's no issues at all. And when we're touring, I sort of wanted something a bit more secure. But like, having said that, we went all over the UK in some terrible conditions, and I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, oh, crap, we're going to come off. It was just that I fancied something a bit more solid. So it's not like I don't buy the bike or anything. You can still, we had 80-mile-an-hour crosswinds and in the Outer Hebrides, and he still managed fine. Like, so, you know, it is what it is. Honestly, it's been, I think, pretty much faultless bike in terms of what it's for. You know, you can nitpick and say it's not sporty, but you're not buying this bike to be sporty. Or you can say it's not big enough, but then it's a really nice hybrid. Like, you can tour on it, but then it also nips through traffic with absolutely no issues whatsoever. Even with panniers on, I've been absolutely fine getting through, and it's quite light and flickable. Like, you feel that, loads of confidence. It's just a really nice first big bike, because it's a great introduction into big adventure bikes, and I think it's a very sensible thing to do, is to get a bike like this first, and then look at getting onto a a bigger bike, the Triumph 1200 or the GS 1200 or 1250 or the KTM 1290, anything like that. I think you should hone your skills in on something smaller and be really comfortable with how bikes move and how you can get used to it, or get used to acceleration that's faster, get used to controlling the bike, and just be really comfortable. That would be my main thing. I would say this is one of the best bikes for bridging the gap from learner to big adventure. And I know there's the Versas and the V-Strom and that, but I think being an 800cc, this has got a little bit more power, and I think that then it lasts a bit longer maybe in terms of what it gives you, but I don't know. I'm sure that's all personal opinion, especially if someone had a V-Strom as their first bike, big bike. I don't think there's any issues with power when you start there. You can still have loads of fun on this. Right, so thank you very much for watching the review. Sorry about the footage stopping halfway through. I promised to take spare batteries. Next week I will be unveiling my new bike and also looking at the Honda NC750 DCT.